What's up? Welcome to a slightly early edition of Cohn and Krueger. That's Larry Krueger. I'm Grant Cohn. The draft is coming up. The local pro day is in 2 days. We're here. It's April. And my question to you, I got to start with Brandon Aiyuk again because he's the elephant in the room, the dark cloud. He's whatever you want to. He's the thing that we all have to acknowledge. Is he going to get traded on draft day? Remember, just a couple of years ago, A.J. Brown got traded on draft day for, I believe, pick 18. He went from Tennessee to Philadelphia and got a 4-year, $100 million contract. Do you foresee something like that happening with Brandon Aiyuk?
Well, the Niners have said all the right things, right? We love him. We appreciate him. He's a big part of this thing. But you know and I know that Parag is a very tough negotiator. They have a number in mind. If he exceeds that number, they're going to probably move off. That would be my guess. All the talk is coming out of the combine was that they were going to wait, Grant, until after, the free agent market set itself. Well, that benefits Aiyuk. It does not benefit the 49ers. And I just think that his price tag and his final ask is going to get to a point that they're going to look to move him, but they're going to want value. And I think he's a good enough player coming off an all-pro season that they're going to find enough value out there in a trade. And I think they're going to pull the trigger. So if I had to bet one way or another, I would say yes.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, again, looking back at that A.J. Brown trade as sort of a template, Tennessee got the 18th pick and pick 101. I think if the Niners could get that package for Brandon Aiyuk, they would do it. And I don't see why they couldn't get that package for Brandon Aiyuk. I mean, I think he's every bit as good as A.J. Brown, personally.
It could come in a different form as far as it may not be a pick as high as 18 or a pick as low as 101. But like I saw Bleacher Report had an article the other day of like 4 or 5 different trades. One of the trades they had was Aiyuk to the Commanders, who have tons of cap room and can easily afford him, for their high second round pick, was like 34 or 35 or something like that. Their high third round pick and Jahan Dotson, their second year wide receiver. Then the Niners at least have a plug and play player that is ready to, step in opposite Debo and play, and 2 high draft picks to either find another receiver, find a lineman, build up their team. I could see something like that.
Also, if they trade Brandon Aiyuk, they free up $14 million in cap space that they could use to sign a wide receiver such as Tyler Boyd or whoever they want. So that's an option as well.
Who's a good player.
Very good player. I mean, his numbers are quite comparable to Brandon Aiyuk. He's not as good, but the numbers are quite comparable. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised in a second and a third. I feel like they're going to get that probably on draft day. Maybe it's better to wait until the day comes along so you know exactly who's available at those picks before you agree to it. But, I mean, the other option is just give him whatever he wants or make him play out the 5th-year option, which sounds cool. But if you make him play out the 5th-year option, you can't trade him out after that. He would leave, most likely, or you could tag him, but he would leave eventually and you get like a 3rd-round comp pick for him as opposed to a 2nd and a 3rd and Jahan Dotson, something like that. So if you want to trade him, the time's now.
Well, and the people who are like, yeah, make him play on the 5th-year option, those are people that aren't in the room.
Right.
You don't want a guy to be, especially a major player on your team, to be in this kind of what the hell, I'm being screwed mode all year long in the middle of your locker room. I don't think that does anybody a service. I think you either have to pay him and get this deal done, or you have to move him. Yeah. I don't think you can say, wait till next year. You just sit over there and, make your 14 million and don't talk. It's like, I think that's like pie in the sky. I don't think that factors in the reality of players are powerful entities in the room.
Now, the Niners did make McGlinchey, Kinlaw, Armstead play on their 5th-year option, but those guys weren't eligible to get a contract that was worth $27 million a year on the open market. I think everyone agrees that if Brandon Aiyuk were an unrestricted free agent, that's the kind of money he would get. So I don't know if the Niners could play that kind of hardball with them, to your point.
I just don't think I don't think you want to do that. I just feel like, doesn't it seem like he's in a mode where he would be very disenchanted if he wasn't dealt with this year? If they just said, you know what, wait, I think that, I don't think that's good. I think that either you're not going to get the most out of him, or he's not going to be happy, or he's going to be a distraction.
Right.
It's going to be a constant drumbeat of talk about it. It's just not positive.
I don't think it's that they wouldn't get the most out of him, because he still has a lot to play for and he still needs to get his extension. But it's like, he's a key member of the team. He's a leader of the team. And if he hates the team and he has tremendous resentment towards the team, that can only affect the locker room. Because I'm sure a lot of people support him and think he deserves the money and think he'd be getting screwed over and would be pissed at at the team. It's not necessarily what you want.
Well, you heard it last year from was it Kittle, who was like, I think he's worth $26 million. You know, it's like, well, wait a second. Nobody ever asked you.
Yeah.
And now you're weighing in on him. So I don't know.
Trent Williams said it in the locker room. I mean, it seems like there's pretty much unanimous support that Brandon Aiyuk has earned his payday. And if he doesn't get it, people are going to be looking around like, am I going to get mine? Because his resume is better than mine.
Right. And then also we mentioned Boyd. I mean, this is a unique year. If you look at the free agent market, a lot of the top talents off the board, except at wide receiver,
right,
where you still can get a Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd ate up the Niners in that Cincy game for a touchdown and 3 or 4 receptions. And he's a veteran guy with great ball skills. You could add him and a receiver in the draft and save money. That might be the route they go.
Yeah, you got to remember, this is most likely Jawan Jennings' final season on the team. They tendered him. He's a restricted free agent. But next year, as an unrestricted free agent, I don't really care what the Niners do, how many targets they give him. I feel like some team's going to look at him as a starter, the way the Patriots looked at Kendrick Bourne as a starter a few years ago, and he'll get priced out. So all the more reason to draft a wide receiver. Takes him a while to learn the system anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you never know what direction this thing's going to go, because Lynch has said all the right things, right? Lynch has said, hey, you know what? We really appreciate this guy. We really respect this guy. We want this guy. But you kind of also know that there's a cutoff. There's some defined cutoff where they're going to pivot and go in a different direction.
He said the right things, but he's also kind of spoken in code a little bit. And let's compare what he said about Aiyuk to what he said last year about Bosa. Right? When he was asked about Bosa, it was like a chuckle and a laugh and like, oh, he's the best. You got to give him whatever it takes. You know what I mean? Like the hotline is closed on that one. Didn't he say that? Like with Aiyuk, it's like, oh, we really like, it's almost like he's trying to apologize for the low offer. It's like, I know we kind of lowballed you, but we love you. We think you're the greatest. With Bosa, it was like, yeah, I mean, we're just going to have to do what it takes. It's a difference.
Yeah, you do. It does feel different, doesn't it? It felt like Bosa is like, we love Nick and Nick loves us and we will get it done. And they
don't worry,
like,
it's going to take some time. It's a lot of money.
Where the dialogue around Aiyuk is much more like, we really like this player. We really think this player's good. But then it also reeks of, hey, but this player's ask was exorbitant and we had to cut it off.
It's one thing to pay a defensive end coming off the Defensive Player of the Year award $34 million a year. Like, he is worth it. You use him that much. He's the engine of your defense. It's another thing to give a wide receiver that you only target 100 times a season $27 million. Is he that good? Yes. Do you use him that much? Absolutely not. And you know it. So unless you're going to, either you're going to change your offense or you're going to massively overpay a player you don't use enough. They know that.
And we're going to find out if the Niners have learned their lesson. I mean, let's be honest on this. They waited and on Bosa, they paid him, and then he didn't necessarily deliver. They waited on Debo. They paid him. He didn't necessarily deliver. To me, they're going to be more decisive on Aiyuk.
Good point.
They're going to pay him, or they're not going to pay him. They're not going to let him hold out and this and that, and then have him be unhappy.
You want to win the Super Bowl this year, right? It's like the last year of this window. So having Aiyuk hold out all offseason definitely doesn't help you win the Super Bowl. Moving on and getting in someone else who wants to be here and can be there the entire offseason would help, or extending Aiyuk now. Having Aiyuk get extended after OTAs and minicamp seems not ideal.
Well, and also at the end of the day, I mean, he's a great player. There's no question, but I would say, is he worth the money that he's asking for if you're going to continue to utilize him the way
No,
you've utilized him? He
no,
only caught 3 balls in each of the last 3 playoff games.
no. No, and I think that's almost a statement from the 49ers. Like, hey, I know we're about to negotiate with you in a couple of months. Here's what we really think about you in playoff game after playoff game. It's like, are they going to pay him $27 million a year? They wouldn't even feature him in the passing game 2 months ago. 2 months ago, they wouldn't do it.
Right. So,
I mean, I think Jennings had more targets in the playoffs than Aiyuk.
Jennings
McCaffrey,
absolutely
Debo,
outplayed him in the
all of
Super
them.
Bowl.
Yeah.
Totally outplayed him in the Super Bowl. And also, I mean, let's just be honest. You got Debo, you got Jennings, and now you got Aiyuk. If you sign these guys for the money that they all want, you're going to have 60 some odd million dollars tied up in wide receivers on a run first team.
Doesn't make sense.
It's, unless you're going to change the total identity of your football team, it does not make sense.
And like the identity from the offensive line being more pass protecting oriented as opposed to run blocking. A coach who puts more emphasis in his drop back passing designs as opposed to run and play action, and a quarterback with maybe a stronger arm. Like Ayuk's great, and Purdy and him have a great connection, but someone like Josh Allen, I think, could expand what Aiyuk does. Because to me, Aiyuk can be running, post corners, deep stuff. You could take one shot a game at him, and that's not who Purdy is. That's not what Shanahan wants to do. It's just not the kind of offense they have. Send him to Buffalo. Send him to the Chargers, and could be a better fit there. And they could actually justify spending that much money on a wide receiver.
And also, I mean, the old saying is, don't listen to what somebody says, pay attention to what they do. And the 49ers have done an awful lot of looking around at top tier wide receivers that on paper, they are not going to have a chance to draft. So it makes you kind of wonder if they're kind of considering any and all options as it pertains to Aiyuk, including trading.
Yeah. And, they drafted Aiyuk when Jimmy was the quarterback. They drafted Aiyuk with Jimmy in mind. Jimmy's different than Purdy. Now they're finally building the offense around Purdy's skill set, which is tremendous and unique. And I think what Purdy we see is he's just freaking phenomenal over the middle. And he keeps you honest with his deep ball and his passes to the sideline. He can definitely hit those, but he's living over the middle with his accuracy and anticipation. So you don't necessarily need a wide receiver like Brandon Aiyuk, a guy like Tyler Boyd, who's a slot receiver. I mean, he can run that dig route real well. You just need a bunch of guys who run that square in. That's what the Niners do, and that's what Purdy does well.
I mean, what you really need are receivers with ball skills, and Ayuk's got good ball skills, but Boyd's got great ball skills. Right. So, I mean, that's his game. Now, he doesn't run like Aiyuk; he's not as dynamic. But the dynamic part of Aiyuk, they utilize very infrequently. What they really need is 3 receivers that all have ball skills.
Yeah,
because Brock's going to put it on your hands. Can you catch it?
I mean, Aiyuk is tough, and he runs a great dig route. He's not afraid to go over the middle.
Very tough.
He's the kind of guy that you want to be running deeper down the field. Like when he made that deep touchdown catch against the Buccaneers, he could do that more frequently if the 49ers gave him the opportunities. So I'm not even blaming Brock. It's a play calling thing. It's what they want to do on offense. They want to live in that intermediate area. And if you're not going to take advantage of Brandon Aiyuk deep, then don't pay him $27 million a year. You could get a guy, pay him $10 million, and he'll do 95% of what Brandon Aiyuk does for you in this scheme.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then take that value of Aiyuk and pour it into areas of your football team where you're truly naked, like at center and right guard and right tackle and maybe corner and maybe free safety and some of the linebackers, some of those other spots.
A final thought on this real quick, or at least mine. People are arguing why you got to pay Brandon Aiyuk. Well, he's a number 1 receiver. Without him, you wouldn't have a number 1 receiver. Chiefs don't have a number 1 receiver. You don't necessarily need to have a number 1 receiver to win a Super Bowl. What you need is an offensive line, a quarterback, a plethora of options, but not necessarily one guy making that much.
I agree.
Yeah.
A number 1 receiver is like it's a sexy pick. Everybody loves it. You buy his jersey, you talk about him, but you win games with what you have on the line of scrimmage. I mean, if you're stacked on the line of scrimmage and you want a great receiver, go for it. But be stacked on the line of scrimmage. The Niners are are naked on the line of scrimmage on the right. From the center over, they've got replacement level. I like McKivitz a little bit more than replacement level, but like Feliciano at this point, Brendel at this point, I think those are guys that you can and probably should upgrade from.
It just seems to me that in a salary capped league with what wide receivers are making in their prime on the open market, upwards of $30 million a year, you can't give them the ball enough to justify that. You just can't. You can't. Maybe if it was Jerry Rice in his prime, but otherwise, they don't touch the ball enough. They get the ball 7-8 times a game. That's it.
And look at the other teams in the league that have come to that exact same realization. The Raiders came to that realization with Devontae, or I should say Green Bay did. KC came to that realization with Tyreek.
Buffalo Bills.
Buffalo just moved off of Diggs. I mean, but there are others.
The Vikings moved off of Diggs.
AJ Brown, they moved off of AJ Brown for Treylon Burks. So yeah, I mean, I mean, look at the number of NFL teams that had great, awesome wide receivers that everybody loved, had their jersey and celebrated. And then look how many of those guys actually got traded in the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of shows that this is the route that you got to go.
Did Terrell Owens win a Super Bowl? No. Did Randy Moss win a Super Bowl? No. Did Antonio Brown win a Super Bowl? Did he? Technically, he did, didn't he? At the end of his career with Tampa?
He did.
Sorry, that didn't help my argument. But you see what I'm trying to say.
Lots of great receivers fall short.
Yeah. There's only so much of an impact they can make. Let's talk rumors. Some rumblings. 49ers could be kicking the tires on Budda Baker, or that he'd be a great. What do you think? What are you hearing?
Well, okay. Budda Baker is supposedly going to be dealt. Supposedly he's going to be dealt for a day 3 pick. Yeah. Supposedly, according to CBS Sports, the Niners and the Colts are 2 of the 3 teams interested. I think he's the perfect fit. I think when you look at the 49ers, one of the primary need that we never talk about is that they don't have a free safety. Both their guys, Jair and Talanoa, Talanoa's coming off an injury, but I think they're both strong safeties. I look at Jair as a guy who could play a little free safety, Grant, but he's more like a Tayshaun Gibson in that he's a productive interceptor, but he's not really covering anybody down the field. So they need a coverage player down the field and a big-time free safety, and Budda Baker is exactly that, and he's cheap as far as draft pick compensation, I believe, because he's a free agent at the end of the year. It would really be kind of a win now, all in kind of a move. But, man, you've heard George Kittle talk about Budda Baker. I mean, there's a lot of respect there. This is one of the NFL's better free safeties. If you can get him for a 5th-round pick, you figure out a way to squeeze that contract in, I think I would do it.
Yeah, whenever the Niners play the Cardinals, all they really do is talk about Budda Baker. They're like, look, they're kind of rebuilding, and they're not really there yet. But Budda Baker, it is just an honor and a privilege to compete against that man. He's the hardest playing player in the league. I mean, just on and on and on. So, yeah, he would fit right in the locker room. And I want to know what the Nick Sorensen effect will be on the defense. Like, is he going to make this his own? He comes from Seattle for a long time. The last few years on the Niners, they've been really running a lot of split safety looks from Wilkes to D'Amico. The very end with Saleh, everything started in a split safety look, and then they would rotate after that. But they like to play a lot of quarters at the end. Wilkes didn't have a lot of success with it. Sorensen comes from Seattle. Are they going to get back to like single high stuff? In which case, yeah, they absolutely need a free safety like Budda Baker, because I don't think you want Jair Brown playing center field like that. I think both he and Hufanga are strong safeties, or guys who can play half the field.
Yeah, I mean, and then I understand that they both want to be starters, and what that makes me wonder about is one of those guys, most likely Hufanga going to be traded, but beyond that, you got Hufanga coming off of an ACL, and you have George Odom and nothing else behind that. I mean, they're going to either have to prioritize safety probably on day 2, or make that kind of a move for a veteran, or, they could always go sign, there's still Simmons and a couple other guys out there, but I mean, Budda Baker is a difference maker.
Invader 49er says Budda Baker would be Staley's star position player. It would be interesting if the 49ers were to get a safety and put him at linebacker in the nickel defense, because that optimistic about what Devondre Campbell's going to bring to the 49ers this year. I'm open to being pleasantly surprised, but assuming he continues his downward trajectory, it'd be interesting to get a different nickel weak side linebacker. And you could go with Hufanga. Remember once upon a time when Robert Saleh moved Eric Reed to linebacker? Eric Reed hated it, but it worked.
Well, I mean, and that's the trend in the league anyway, to go to these 220-pound hybrid strong safety weak side backer types. And there's a couple good ones in this draft again. So they could probably go get one on day 3 if they wanted to. Or they could just play the guys they have there. But yeah, I mean, to me, how the secondary comes together in the draft is going to be interesting because they got a lot of numbers at corner, but they don't have a true number one. They've got, they're pretty thin at safety, and they kind of seem like they need that free safety that can cover the field in the cover 3, or even just play man to man. I don't think they feel comfortable. At least I don't feel comfortable about Hufanga or Jair Brown in man to man.
Doesn't it seem like that's what they're trying to do? Like they had Jimmy Ward, who gave them the ability to play single high. Then they moved it to Sean Gibson, who was in his early 30s. And I think ever since they moved to him, it was very much a split safety team. And every safety they've looked at this offseason has been fast. So I think they're trying to give themselves more versatility, more speed in the secondary, which makes sense. And it would point to Budda Baker. Also, another guy, if we're talking about nickel linebackers, guy you don't have to trade for, Jamal Adams.
Yeah, who's, he really is a linebacker.
Yeah.
He's not a safety, and he's out there. And you never know. Maybe he's got a little bit of an axe to grind with Seattle and would want to come to the Niners.
Is he worse than Campbell?
I think he's better. I mean, I don't love him as a safety, but I love him as an undersized linebacker. Campbell seems to think that he was done wrong in Green Bay, and he's going to have some renaissance with the Niners. I got to wait and see on that.
He did say that. Well, he made it seem like he was, just a Sam linebacker over there? Like, wait till Dre Greenlaw comes back. What are you going to be here?
Right. I mean, and then the other big question with the Niners is, D. Winters and Jalen Graham. I mean, do the Niners like them?
Yeah.
Or not? Because, Graham didn't touch the field at all. I asked Wilkes about it late in the year. He's like, he was a converted, kind of a hybrid safety linebacker in college. It set him back. I'm like, Steve, you look pretty damn good in the preseason. Really? I mean, you're telling me this guy can't play? I think
Steve couldn't take any chances last year. His job was on the line. Maybe that was part of the reason he didn't play these guys, right?
Yeah, that could be it too. That could be it.
Yeah. Michael McCann says, pay Aiyuk. Here's why. Run-first offenses don't win Super Bowls. End of story. The team will adapt as needed, starting with Aiyuk, Debo trade post June 1. I actually agreed with that. That I agree with. Run-first teams do not win Super Bowls. I'm with you on that. Hey, tell it to Kyle, though, and his dad, because his dad won that way 25 years ago, more than that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a dynamic passing offense. But I mean, are we supposed to believe that the Niners won't have a dynamic passing offense? This is also a very loaded wide receiver group. They could add a wide receiver that's even more dynamic than Aiyuk.
They need someone who can at least hold his own against Chris Jones. You can beat every team in the league. You can't beat Kansas City. You need someone who can hold his own. And that's what's crazy. Like, I think they need to think that way. Usually you think about, you got to match up with the teams in your division. Man, you own your division. Chris Jones is your problem. He is the main reason you haven't won 2 Super Bowls. So in the past, you could go real small at guard because Aaron Donald was the guy you were trying to match up with, and he's like 285 pounds. Chris Jones is 6'6". He just bullies your offensive line. So bringing in Feliciano was a good start, 325 pounds. Maybe someone else who's kind of big like that who can at least not get bull rushed into Purdy's face.
Yeah, it is time. I mean, Shanahan said it. He said, hey, look, we've signed these guys, but we're looking to upgrade. So they don't want to be caught naked, so they re-signed their guys. But I think they're looking to upgrade at center, right guard, and right tackle. And you're right. They have to focus on Jones because he's the mismatch.
What's crazy is if you go back and look at the Broncos teams that won the Super Bowl under Mike Shanahan and look at those offensive lines, Mark Schlereth, was it Tom Nalen? The guys weighed like 285 across the board.
They were movement guys with Alex Gibbs.
Yeah, and it was novel. It was new. It worked. That does not work anymore. You cannot have an offensive line full of undersized guys who are barely 300 pounds soaking wet, not against these defensive lines like Kansas City. So I think the Niners get it. I think the Rams get it. They just went and got Jonah Jackson. He's huge. John Feliciano isn't small. Aaron Banks isn't small. They may be getting it.
Right. I mean, I like the Niner line on the left side.
Yeah.
It's Brendel's 285. I mean, to me, if you want to talk about the moment that was really embarrassing, it was the DJ Reader Cincinnati domination over Brendel.
Yeah.
I thought that was awful. And
that's what you're going to get when you play as 285-pound center in 2023.
Right. You got to be able to run in the middle.
I got a stat for you. Christian McCaffrey's yards per carry last season between the tackles, inside, 4
yards a carry.
4. He's way too good for that. That's not because of him. That's because of Brendel and Feliciano and Burford and Banks, frankly. So they should probably upgrade there.
Plus, they're going to, here's the other thing. We're talking about offensive efficiency, too. They're going, every football team is going to take their shots between the tackles. So if you can't run between the tackles, then those become wasted plays. You fall behind the chains, and it puts more of a pressure on your quarterback and your tackles to pass protect. And to
everyone knows the Niners want to get outside the tackles on their run. So if you set the edge, you have a pretty good chance against the 49ers run game. More rumors. Micah Parsons apparently is alienating the Cowboys. He's like the best freaking player in the league, and they're thinking of getting rid of him because they don't like him. This is interesting. What do you make of this?
Well, I think he's just I'm not sure if he's the greatest guy. He's a terrific player, 13 and a half, 14 and a half, 14 sacks. I think, he's had 3 years in a row where it's really, really good production. But then you also have CeeDee Lamb, who's going to hold out. They've paid their quarterback a ton. They don't have as much money to spend, and it sounds like there's people internally that are just tired of Micah. I'd take him. I'd take him.
I'd take him. Every team's like, that's a good call, Dallas. You take a stand. Trade him to us. Right.
There's a big story today in Philly.
Dak Prescott and trading Micah Parsons. Please do that, Dallas.
Philly radio was all ablaze this morning on Micah to the Eagles. It's like, dude, the Cowboys, the stadium could be burning to the ground. The last team they would trade him to is the Eagles.
This almost just feels like the Cowboys searching for attention. Hey, talk about us. We have drama too. Do we like Micah? Do we not? Yes, you like Micah. Shut up. Shut the fuck up. You like Micah. He's coming back. End of story. Trade him. The whole league would laugh. I would laugh. Please do it. I want you to.
Oh, it'd be great.
It would be so funny.
We've seen a lot. I'll say this about the NFL though. As the years have gone by, it does seem like we see more dramatic transactions involving bigger name players than you would ever think would move. No, the level of players that have moved in the last, let's say 3 years is greater than the level of players that have ever moved in the history of the league. I mean, it's amazing how many guys have been moved that are big.
The guy they need to move is Dak.
Yeah, they could.
End of story. Micah's their best player. Micah and CeeDee Lamb is your team. Okay? That's your team. Quality control. This is pro bono right now.
He could be their Haley. He could be like one of these guys that's like, he's awesome, but you know what? Nobody wants to be around the guy.
He doesn't strike me as Haley. I mean, there's a lot of stories about Charles Haley that I don't think we can repeat on this podcast, but if you've been around, you know about it. I don't think Micah's like that. Charles Haley was unhinged when he was a young man. Unhinged.
You're saying that it's possible that Mike is not urinating on cars.
You said it. I didn't say it. Allegedly. Were these in memoirs and stuff? But yeah, I've heard those stories. Micah just seems like he has a podcast and he might be a little bit of a diva. Sure. Okay. I mean, there's a lot of players like that in the league.
He lets his opinion be known. And he was involved in a really, really ugly incident at Penn State, which was the reason that he fell in the draft. Where'd he go? 4, 9, 10, 12, something like that. He was going to be like a top 5 guy, but he was involved in this kind of ugly situation, and you could look it up, but
I don't even know what that was. So okay, that makes sense. I'm not going to stick up for him then. Maybe he is a bad guy. Okay, moving on. Sleeper picks for today. We got the Warriors and the Giants playing today. Let's start with the Warriors. They're playing.
You got the national championship. Don't forget that too.
Oh, we should probably do that.
I kind of like the
Big
sleeper
game.
Purdue. I think Purdue might pull the
Okay.
upset.
Okay, let's see if we can get it. College basketball. We got 3 players. Have you heard of Jones, Smith, or Spencer?
Yes.
Lance Jones for Purdue
Okay.
put
Good
up
shooter.
14 points last. His up the more or less is set at 10.5 points for Lance Jones. How do you feel?
Ooh. I'm gonna say over.
Okay. More for Lance Jones. Oh, there comes a bunch more people right there. If you see a name you recognize, shout it out.
Well, you got Zach Edey right
Okay.
there. Is that is that 28.5? What is that? What's the over under on him?
That's points, rebounds, and assists over under. Points is at 24.5.
I like that over. I like ZD over
40 a couple games ago. Okay. Edey, that's 2. We need one more from a different team.
Okay, let's see. Go with who's the guy under Newton right there? Who's
Stephen
that?
Castle.
Yeah, he's
10.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists.
I would say you can take any category, or you can go
whatever you want. Points, rebounds, and assists.
I would say go over on the points.
Okay.
For him.
All right, let's keep going really just for fun, because I know I'm going to get these wrong anyway. Why don't we do one Warrior for fun?
Okay.
No, that's not it. Here it is.
So do the Warriors go tonight? No, it's tomorrow night. That's tomorrow
night. Okay, forget them. Let's get the Giants then.
Yeah, you can go Blake Snell.
Blake Snell. Blake Snell. This is his first start of the season, right?
First start, yeah.
Okay, 6.5 strikeouts, 1.5 walks, 3.5 hits allowed, 1.5 earned runs.
I would say go 3.5 hits allowed over.
Against Washington. Anyone else in this game you want?
4 hits.
Conforto, Estrada.
Is there Yaz?
Yeah. Yes, here.
Under on Yaz.
On whatever.
Yeah, I mean, just the guy just needs to retire.
Hits. Yeah, how about that? Let's do the entry. We got 3 from the national championship, 2 from the Giants game tonight. This is the action you want. Submit in the entry you want to play. There's a QR code. There's my code, COHN. Get up to $500 on your first deposit matched. Boom. Boom. Okay. Larry, what is the 49ers' biggest need going into the draft?
Well, I mean, they need to rebuild the offensive line, but I think it's defensive tackle. And the reason for it is that you lost Armstead, and Malik Collins and Jordan Elliott are like rotation guys.
Mm-hmm.
Givens is a rotation guy. You lost a foundation piece in Armstead. Yeah, he was hurt a lot, but he still was a foundation piece. So I think you need a foundation piece defensive tackle, believe it or not.
Malik Collins played 64% of the snaps for the Texans last year. So he's not necessarily a guy who's going to be on the field all the time. That's a good call. Agree with that. And it's like the Niners always draft defensive linemen in the first round. It's what they do. Kinlaw, Solomon Thomas, Nick Bosa. They don't draft that many positions in round 1. And on offense, when they've drafted players, it's been guys that they needed to start right away. They can't have enough defensive linemen.
Yeah, I mean, here's the bottom line. They have I would like to see them upgrade. I think most people would too. But I think in Kyle's mind, they have a starting offensive line. For offensive line, you basically just play your starters. But for defensive line, you play every guy you got, and you play a rotation of guys. And to me, they badly need another defensive tackle, Johnny Newton, Braden Fisk, Ruka Rororo. They need somebody inside who's a foundation, who could potentially be a pass rusher and a run stuffer. So I think defensive tackle, once again, is going to be their primary need.
Also, there's no guarantee that Malik Collins or Jordan Elliott are going to be on this team next year. So maybe they feel that there's a defensive tackle they really like and they can't pass up, and he won't necessarily need to start this year. Because it doesn't seem like the Niners prefer starting rookies. I think they take pride in saying our team is just too good for a rookie to start here. Like, okay, cool. Well, then you're drafting for next year, and you might need a starting defensive tackle next year.
Exactly. And you need, and those guys are hard to come by. And in this draft, with the way, I think the way it's going to go, where I think you are going to get 7 or 8 offensive tackles go in round one. And I really believe that Bo Nix and Michael Penix are going to get pushed up from round 2 into round 1. So what's that going to do? That's going to push the defensive tackles down deeper into the 30s. And I think they're going to be staring at basically a full board of the best defensive tackles when their pick comes up. And I think they're going to choose from among them. Based on what I've seen.
I can't hear Larry. Am I the only person that can't hear Larry? Oh, Larry, you're muted.
Sorry.
There you go.
Sorry about that. No, I was going to say, I could see Greg Papa struggling with Rook Aurora, but I think that's pronunciation wise. But I think that's the guy. I think that he had an incredible workout. The guy, he's a great kid. He's 295 and fast. I mean, he played in a big time conference. I think Aurora might be their steal of a tackle, and I think he's going to be there.
And like you said, what is this draft featuring? Quarterbacks, offensive tackles, wide receivers. Those are the 3 strongest positions, at least in round 1. So if you don't need that position, you might feel like you could get a top 20 caliber prospect at 31. Maybe.
Right. You might get here's the question. Do you want the 8th best tackle, or you want the best defensive tackle?
It's a good question. It's a good question when you put it that way. Yeah. I like that. Yeah. How about this, though? 4 years ago, when they wanted a wide receiver, they traded from 31 to 25. It cost them a 4th and a 5th. Not a lot. And they got Aiyuk. Do you think they'll do something like that? Give up a couple day 3 picks to move up 5, 6 spots?
For a wide receiver, you mean?
Someone. For a D tackle, for whoever they want. Just go be aggressive instead of hoping and praying.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing about that. I like that if you're going for certain guys, if you want a particular guy. But man, I mean, I think it's it's generally better to play the board as it plays to you. You know what I mean? Okay. So it's instead of trying to get your guy, I mean, on one hand, Detroit went and got their guy. They wanted the running back from Georgia. They got him. They wanted Sam Laporta. They got him. And they got some really special players. If you feel like you could get some really special players, then you want to trade up a few spots. That's one thing. But moving, expending a lot of your day 3 draft capital to move up for, I mean, look who the Niners have moved up for. They moved up for Jalen Hurd. They moved up for Dante Pettis. They moved up for Joe Williams. They moved up for Trey Sermon. So they don't necessarily have a great track record of, choosing what players to move up for.
No, they did trade up for Brandon Aiyuk, but that's one. That is one. What about the other direction, trading down? Like you said, those quarterbacks could be pushed at the end of round 1. And if Bo Nix and or Michael Penix are available, teams could call the 49ers and say, we want to take this quarterback at 31 so we can get him with the 5th-year option. The Niners could profit, move down, maybe still get a defensive tackle.
Yeah, that's one. I'll tell you the other thing is I did an interview with Baldy, and Baldy was like, hey, you can't have a great line without having a great center. And, instead of focusing only on the offensive tackle, how about rebuild your entire offensive line and maybe start with the center? The kid from West Virginia, Zach Frazier, is a crazy great prospect. I mean, his film he's nasty. He's got a 4.0 GPA. He was a dominant high school wrestler. The guy's the team captain. There's NFL pro personnel directors or college personnel directors that are like, this guy could start for us right now. To me, if you said, what's the Niners' biggest weakness on the O-line? I think it's Brendel. And I know Brendel was a Pro Bowl alternate 2 years ago, but if you could get Zach Frazier from West Virginia, I think I might be comfortable doing that. And he's projected to go around 50. So let's say you got 31, you trade back 5 spots and you take the best center in the draft, in my opinion. That might be a way to go.
Yeah, Another reason to maybe trade down is if the Niners feel like anyone they draft in round 1 won't start right away. And by taking a guy in round 1, you put all kind of pressure on him. He's more expensive. You're not even going to play him for his first season. So trade down 5 spots. Get a high second instead of a late first, and take the pressure off the kid. And no one's clamoring about you redshirting him. No one cared when they redshirted Aaron Banks. But if you redshirt your first round pick, there might be a lot of pressure on the guy. I don't know. Maybe that's another reason to do it.
One other thing to factor in on the draft, Tony Pauline, who's a NFL scout and pretty credible. He's not like one of these guys that just throws out a bunch of garbage. In the last 24 hours, said that the Niners had interest in Guerendo, the running back from Louisville in the 3rd round, who ran in the 4.3s at the combine. Then he took it down, which makes me wonder, if the Niners said to him, "Hey, could you take that down?" But Grant Guerendo is the kind of back that might be kind of like your new age fullback where, because he can block, he can catch, and he runs in the 4.3s, and he's 225 pounds. He could be the guy that kind of gives you a different look than what Juice is giving you right now. So that's another guy to kind of look for in this draft.
Do you think the Niners will draft a running back? They managed to not do it last year. It's the word I'm looking for.
They've drafted a running back, I think, in 2 of the last 3 years. Yeah. And it may not be, there's also great guys late. Like, I think Gore's kid is not bad. Blake Watson from Memphis is not bad. I mean, Tyrone Tracy was a wide receiver at Purdue.
They're going to take a guy in round 3. You already know it's going to happen.
If they do, I hope it's Blake Corum from Michigan. Yeah, because Blake Corum, to me, and it's funny, people have said, "Oh, Harbaugh's going to take Blake Corum in round 2," but if they don't, and he's there or whatever for the Niners in the 3rd round, I mean, you're talking about a great player. I mean, I don't know how maybe you could flex out McCaffrey and use him outside as a receiver and run Corum that way. I don't know. They already have running backs that they don't use, but Corum is a truly great player.
Okay, last topic of the day. Hold on. Did I miss something up? Okay. Who will be George Kittle's backup this year?
That's a great question. You could still sign Robert Tonyan off the free agent market. The best blocking tight end in the draft is a guy named Tip Ryman, who plays for Illinois, and they're saying he's going to be like a 4th or 5th round pick, 6'5", 270. So, I could see something like that. I mean, I guess here would be my question. Do you think if the Niners are looking for a tight end, do you think they're looking for a receiving tight end to try to give themselves a dynamic passing offense behind Kittle, another receiver because they don't have Dwelly signed, or are they looking for, a Tip Ryman dominating blocker at the position so they can run it?
I think they're looking for a blocking tight end because they drafted one of each last year. Latu was the blocking tight end. Willis was the Latu was the Charlie Warner replacement, and Willis was the Ross Dwelly replacement. And Willis was impressive. He got on the field. John Lynch just said he thinks he's going to be a good player. Cam Latu was decidedly unimpressive, and I think they definitely have to hedge their bets there at minimum or just replace him. So, yeah, they're looking for a blocking tight end, but you don't need to take a blocking tight end in round 3. I never understood that Latu pick. Like, they got Charlie Warner in round freaking 6, which is great. This is a guy you're not going to throw the ball to and play about 150 snaps this season. What are you doing?
Yeah. As we're sitting here, the Niners signed Eric Sobert, tight end, to a 1-year deal. Also Patrick Taylor.
Well, I guess that answers that. Eric Sobert?
I don't know if it answers anything. I think he sounds like a camp body to me. But that I would probably guess with you and say that's probably right, that they're probably looking for more of an inline blocker and maybe a guy like that from Illinois. I mean, he's projected at 185 in this draft. So whatever that is, that's mid rounds. That's probably where I'd probably take a blocking tight end in the mid rounds. Yep.
I would agree about that. The Latu pick was just terrible. That was one of the worst picks of the Kyle Shanahan era.
Well, either Latu, if Latu is the player that we saw last summer, oh my God, who the hell scouted that guy? And I want to know names. You know what I mean? And then if Latu though was just like overwhelmed by the intricacies of the offense, he could be the most improved player all summer this summer. I mean, he is big, he is fast, he is athletic, but he couldn't catch anything. And it looked overwhelming to him.
Let me try to give him some grace though. He doesn't really need to catch the ball. He's replacing a guy who caught 3 passes last year. So if he is a really good blocker, he can make the team. I just don't know that he is a really good blocker. I mean, I didn't see that in the preseason. Maybe he is. We'll see.
Yeah,
played Alabama.
It's his moment. I mean, this is it right here for him. He's going to have to show up in camp and be dramatically improved.
Agree. All right. Larry and I are going to duck out a little early today. Larry's got Little League. I've got Little League as well. I'm going back to school like Billy Madison. I'm starting over. So I'm going to go see if I can. Who is it? Danny Almonte? I'm Danny Almonte. I'm 14. I'm a hell of a player.
Then you don't need luck. You just strike everybody out and then go home and call your girlfriend and make sure you shave your mustache.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Make sure you like and subscribe to me and to Larry, and keep watching. We'll be back soon. See you guys.